All right, welcome. Come on in. We are glad you are joining us. We're going to give a couple minutes for everybody to file in. For those that are joining on LinkedIn, thank you for being here. For those that registered and signed up, we're glad you're here too. Or if you're watching a recording, we hope this is really valuable for all of you who are participating. So I'm Mark McWaters. I'm with Ambition. I'll be introducing our panelists here in just a minute, but while we're waiting, Anthony just shared that he is a DJ on the side. So Anthony, tell us a little bit about the DJ biz. Let's hype up. Maybe there are some people that are joining this webinar who are in search of a DJ for their next wedding, I don't know, kid's birthday party. What's the late night club? What's the ICP for your DJ gig?
It's honestly anyone and everybody. I've done weddings, I've done quinceañeras, I've done company parties. So, and of course, the nightclub stuff, that's always fun. So, whether you're looking for, an after party for your SKO or someone actually for your SKO, I've been DJing for about 10 years now. And the beauty of it is Crunchbase I do during the weekdays, DJing I do during the weekend. So, it's a
Have you
full
been
time job to
asked
get
to
everything.
cross that where like a Crunchbase party becomes your
Oh,
DJ?
yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, they'll tell me to come into the office because it's someone's birthday or we're celebrating a team outing. I've even done some of our virtual kickoffs. Is like for the first 5 minutes, I'll play a little mix. So if you're looking for someone to do that, find it in house or find me. Trust me, it adds a lot of flair to a lot of our activities.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Well, I think we've got a crew filing in here, and I believe we're going to kick it off with a poll. Yes. So let's start this with a poll and tee that up. Okay. Poll here. First question, is your budget bigger or smaller than last year? And second question is, do you have 2024 headcount budget? Did you get additional headcount heading into next year? And the third question is, what is the state of your sales org? Is net new the primary growth engine? Is it customers? Is it, hey, both are going really well? Is it, hey, real talk, both are struggling? This is not something where when you're voting, we get your like name and company. This is where we can aggregate some of this together and see some trends. So, wow, I see some stuff coming in here. First question, looking like a lot of smaller budgets so far. Let's give it a little bit of time. Keep collecting some more responses here. And I think we don't leave these up for much longer, but let's see how, we're catching up. Some bigger budgets. We're about 50-50 on headcount so far. And it looks like both are going well, and net new and customers taking the lead so far. So here they come. All right. I think we've got results. Okay. So results are up. So is your budget bigger or smaller than this year? We've got 44% saying bigger, 56% saying smaller. I'm surprised to see that, but basically half. All right. And then for 2024 headcount, this won't be surprising. If the first question is about half, the second one is also about half. So, hey, if you're getting a bigger budget, you're probably getting additional headcount. If you're not getting a bigger budget, you're unlikely getting additional headcount. And then for the state of the sales org, we've got a third of people saying that customers are their primary growth engine. We've got about half saying that both are going really well. And then 11% saying that net new is their primary growth engine. So thank you guys for participating in our poll. And this will help lead us into what we'll be discussing here today. So again, welcome to Steering Your Sales Strategy through 2024, How to Build an Adaptive Plan. I am Mark McWaters. I lead the sales team here at Ambition. I've been here about 7 years, so worn a bunch of different hats. One of them being I get to host fun conversations like this with really smart, great panelists like Glennis and Anthony. So I'm really excited that Glennis Purcell and Anthony Nava are joining us. They're going to do their own quick intro. So Glennis, I'm going to kick it to you first. Tell us a little bit about you and the team you support.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. As he said, I'm Glynis Purcell, and I know I have a super weird long title. I am a principal on our sales enablement team, and I do a lot of leadership coaching here at Workday as well. Fun fact, I actually just celebrated my 2-year anniversary at Workday yesterday. So that was really, really exciting. I love it here. So I support our entire sales force, I guess you could say, from an enablement perspective.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Glynis. All right, DJ Anthony. That's probably not your DJ name, but introduce yourself.
What's going on? If I had the air horn right now, I'd press it, but nice to meet everybody. My name's Anthony Nava. I'm a senior sales development manager over at Crunchbase. I've been with the company for 3 years now, and I oversee both the inbound and the outbound side, but I've been working in tech and sales for quite some time. So if you ever need advice or just want to talk shop about anything about sales, I'm your guy. I'm also your guy if you need anything for any DJ events. So make sure to DM me with any questions around sales for any events coming up with your company. I'm happy to help with both.
All right. Well, thank you all. And what I'm excited about with the crew we've got here is we've got enablement represented, we've got sales development represented, we have sales represented, obviously all of these things working together. And we've got some diversity of thought in the way we're going to approach some of these things. So excited that we've got our crew together. For everybody who's on, please feel free submitting questions, making comments. We really want these to be interactive, fairly informal. The other thing I'll guarantee is that we will not be talking big pie in the sky, like things you can't do anything with. Our hope is that we're giving you real tactics, things that we are doing or plan to do that help you all as you plan for 2024. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what is an MVP. So for those of us that work in software, everyone's pretty familiar with the minimum viable product. Like that's kind of how a lot of companies launch. That's certainly how product teams thinking about it. But how does a revenue team think about the MVP? Well, what we're going to talk about is this minimally viable sales plan. And why are we talking about an MVP when it comes to planning for 2024? Well, I'm willing to guess that 2023 has been somewhat turbulent year for most of you. I know it certainly has been in the B2B sales and marketing space that we live in. It's been hard to predict, and there's been a lot of ups and downs. And so as you plan for 2024, what we want to encourage you to think about is what is that minimally viable plan? AKA, what are the fundamentals? What are the things that we can control as we approach this new year? And how can we approach the year in the right way? So first, defining the strategic mission of your sales organization. An example of this, like, of course, you're trying to grow revenue, but are you growing through the customer org? Are you growing through the net new org? Are you growing through, first year expansion? Think about what that strategic mission going into next year looks like. Then talk about, think to yourself, like, what is that current state in those top urgency drivers? What is helping you win right now, even in this fairly up and down environment that most companies are challenged with? And then third, thinking about that shortest path to revenue. So, of course, we try to think about, big annual goals and big plans. But I would encourage you to think about those first 1 or 2 quarters. What are the things that are working right now that you can foresee still being effective as you enter in to 2024? And let's call it what it is. Most of the experts out there are assuming that 2024 is going to look a lot like 2023 at the beginning, at least. And so we as leaders need to be able to use that as we help our teams plan. So I mentioned one of ambitions and kind of the way we've been thinking about 2024 is we've had a lot of expansion growth in our customer base and net new in an environment where tech consolidation has been king in 2023. How do we double down on some customer expansion as an example of how we think about our MVP? But let's visualize this as we go into 2024. And the way we want to encourage you to think about this is at the bottom. And, why do we have a skateboard, a scooter, a bike, a motorcycle to a car? It's that as you plan for next year, each part of that plan should be able to build on the previous piece, but each piece should be able to stand on its own. Something that I know Anthony's going to dive into in a little bit is talking about ICP and how to approach the right customer. Well, there are levels to how you would approach an ICP, and it doesn't mean that you have to have all 5 to get there. You can start in one place and continue to build and reach towards the, kind of the ultimate plan that you're working towards here in 2024. But don't think about it in terms of the top of, a tire by itself isn't going to get you anywhere. And maybe 2, with the base, you're still kind of stuck and you're waiting until you ultimately get in the car to see success. You can have success at each step of the plan. And so when the team visualized it like this, I thought this was a really good way to frame it for our conversation today. The last piece we're going to encourage before we get into some of these ideas is in this environment where it's been volatile, and as you approach the year, you try to have the best laid plan, but oftentimes those plans are going to move, right? And you're going to have to adapt. And so think about your 2024 in terms of high impact, high urgency. That's what we want to include in this minimally viable sales plan as we approach the year. And if you have things that perhaps the impact is low or the urgency is low, but it is a high impact or a high urgency as well, those are times to debate and revisit. When team planning comes together, there's going to be a bunch of different ideas. The obligation of that leadership team or that group that is putting a plan together is, how do we focus on the highest impact, highest urgency things that we can deliver? And then the others, let's debate them and figure out, hey, is this the right time to approach that in our planning? So think about those MVPs, think about steps that build on each other, think about high impact, high urgency, and let's talk about how we at Ambition, at Workday, at Crunchbase are planning ahead for 2024. So let's get to our first topic, and we're going to talk about how we move beyond ICP to quickest close. And Anthony is going to kick this topic off for us. As him leading inbound and outbound at Crunchbase, he certainly lives, eats, breathes everything ICP. So Anthony, tell us a little bit about how you're thinking about this for 2024.
Definitely. I'm sure as everyone's experienced this past year, inbound's becoming a lot harder because people aren't raising their hands as much. And if you're not outbounding with a strategy, we're running into a lot of the same objections that we're also facing, such as don't have enough budget, smaller team, not able to do this. So with that being said, it's super important to help build an outbound strategy. And one of the core powers to that is reevaluating your ICP. And some of the ways that we help do that within Crunchbase to evaluate our ICP, a lot of these answers are within your organization. So the first thing that we're doing, we're connecting with our CSMs and understanding who are our customers that are renewing and very excited about the product, and who are the personas that are constantly being our power users and really taking advantage of a lot of the features that are key signals for us to show growth. Once you identify the industries and personas, we partner with our marketing team to follow leads and see, okay, who are the ones that are closing faster? Who are the personas that are ready to buy and closing, but also not usually the same people that we've talked to over the past year? Once you've compiled those lists of industries and personas, talking to both the CSMs and the marketing team, the last thing that I would have your SDRs and AEs do that we're doing, plugging it into your prospecting tool, building the list of the industries and personas that are targeting and buying from you as of recently, especially in this new economic climate. And the added layer that I would really suggest that everyone's doing, they should do, is to filter that either with people that are recently funded or hiring, or exclude the ones that may have gone through layoffs recently. Because what you're allowing yourself to do along with that new ICP is setting your reps up for success. You're getting ahead of the objections that we're all facing constantly, and you're targeting a new persona and making sure that you're getting the closest path to getting these deals closed.
Yeah, I love this. And I couldn't agree more on focusing in on hiring, funding rounds as trigger events that might, tell you that business is in the market for tools and services that help them scale. I know at Ambition, one of the things that we've done this year is really double down on 2 areas, and they're very related. One is what we call Friends of Ambition. It means you've been a user in the past, or a buyer or a champion. Perhaps you were even just in a deal cycle that didn't close, but that you were a big advocate. The other is using User Gems, which is a software that tracks when somebody goes from one company to another, and that company was a user of your product. And so we've been using them for years, and that being a fairly specific way to target people who, when you contact them, already understand your value prop, already have a good story to tell, and you can kind of start on second base. So I love the tips that Anthony shares there. Glynis, what would you add as you think about the ICP? What would you add here that maybe we haven't hit on yet?
Yeah, Anthony makes a lot of really great points. One thing I think, in from an enablement standpoint, ICPs, marketing comes in, they usually define them really, really well. So unless you're a newer organization, you've probably clearly defined who your ICPs are. But one of the things to think about is sometimes their priorities change or their motivations change. And how does the market impact the motivations or priorities for those ICPs? It's one thing to understand the persona. It's a different thing to understand their competing priorities. We have a really fun thing we talk about, which is saying that vendor selection is like a party. You can either be invited to the party, you can crash it, or you can help plan it. And so the better you know what their priorities are, the better you are helping them to plan the party, and the better chance you have of quickening that close.
Now, that's a question that I feel like could be used when you get brought in that first meeting and you find out there's other vendors, or you just find out they're planning a process. Hey, are we helping you plan this party, or are we crashing the party late that, you kind of already found the person you want to go to the dance with? I love the analogy there, Glennis. Okay, great. Well, ICP, certainly a hot topic. And as we enter this next year, it's not one of those things you just fix. You're just constantly living ICP. So the closed ones, the closed loss that come through, you have to learn from them. And I love the tips that already got shared. Okay. Second part, we're going to talk about how to make faster pivots with coaching. Glynis is going to kick us off here, given that she has this wide purview of, all Workday sales. I'm really interested to hear more of how Workday is thinking about this, and how you, Glynis, see coaching as a quick way to pivot and help you win next year.
Yeah, this is a topic really close to my heart. It's one of the reasons I joined enablement. I love coaching. I think the biggest thing that I would say, and the first thing everyone needs to think about, is there's coaching and there's feedback. And a lot of times we get them confused. Feedback is telling someone or talking to someone about a very specific topic, right? So we usually give feedback when something is maybe not going well or wants them to fix something. Coaching is all about asking questions so people can come to their own conclusions. And one of the biggest things I know we're focusing on is, how do we create that clear delineation of when and how should you give feedback versus when and how should you be coaching your team? And I think that if you don't understand that delineation, it's really hard to pivot quickly, because sometimes you're giving feedback and you're not actually coaching.
That's such a good point. Being able to, rep-led coaching is something that we talk a lot about. And, sometimes when people hear that, they think like, oh, is that the inmates running the asylum? It's like, no, actually, you're letting a seller self-discover the answer, oftentimes in a one-on-one, rather than you, the leader, just giving them the exact thing that needs to happen. You doing that over and over again, they won't receive it near as quickly as when you say, hey, what do you think the best plan is? And also, sometimes they have a better plan than you do. And so as a leader, there's a lot you can learn from that. And I love hearing kind of that delineation of coaching versus feedback. Anthony, I know you lead teams too. Tell us a little bit about how you think about coaching and how you can use that to make faster pivots.
I think one of the things that I'm trying out this year, and I've tried recently, is really reevaluating the KPIs that we're focusing on for our reps, to ensure that we're not only promoting better behavior, but looking at the things that matter. For example, instead of looking at calls made, we're looking at connects. Instead of looking at meetings set, we're looking at meetings held. And what you notice is, when you do emphasize that amongst your reps, you start to uncover things a lot faster, because what tends to happen is reps will hit their dials, they'll send their emails, but they're not getting the results. And they can walk away feeling defeated because they hit their KPIs, but they're not walking away with the outcomes that really matter. So when we've adjusted it to focus on calls made, you're starting to see, okay, well, this is how you're getting your data. This is the time you're calling, and you're able to coach them faster. And a little bit like Glynis was saying, is you allowing them to identify that themselves helps uncover and make these conversations happen quicker and more efficiently. And I think another important thing to couple with that is to ensure that you're having data to drive these conversations. One of the cool things that we do is in our coaching sessions, we have ambition, pull up, calls made, calls connected, and using that week over week to check progress. If you're tracking the action items and you're tracking the feedback, we have this mantra of getting 1% better and using the data to have the reps explain it, but also check in to see how's the growth been, where are we getting better, and continuing to double down on that.
Metric driven coaching, so vital to how you drive a sales org for sure. And goodness, I love the comment about those closest to the problem or the closest to the solution. We were talking about kind of the importance of the frontline manager and like frontline enablement. So goodness, can you tell us how Workday really focuses in on or will continue to be focusing in on that frontline manager as the force multiplier, if you will, of those initiatives?
Yeah. I think we all know traditionally, there's no secret that frontline management is the hardest job that you have in an organization. I know I've been there, and you're juggling a lot of different things. So, we are really taking a focus this year to look at how we enable our frontline managers. And one really easy tip I can give you if you are a frontline manager to support a coaching practice is have your AEs bring to you what they want to talk about for their one-on-ones. We always come in, we have a lot of things to talk about, but it'll help you understand what are their priorities, what's top of mind for them. It also helps sometimes pull away from a metrics-driven conversation and uncover issues that you may not have known about. So I like to give that autonomy back to the AEs and say, okay, you come with the agenda, and if you've got something you need to cover with them, kind of bring it up at the end, make sure you leave enough time for that. But one of the things we're doing is coaching our RSDs, or what we call our frontline managers. How do you have those one-on-ones correctly, right? How do you uncover those conversations through coaching and better questioning? So hopefully that's a quick takeaway.
Yeah. I mean, this is such a, the reality that a lot of people don't want to admit, but that you hear is that in most companies, the one-to-one conversation doesn't happen. Or if it does, it's like, what deal is going to close right now? And it's, an urgent fire pipeline conversation. And so having the reps bring some of the agenda, one of the reasons to defend the sales manager, certainly live this life, is that sometimes a one-on-one doesn't happen because you're so busy doing other things, you don't feel prepared enough to have a meaningful conversation. Well, if you let the rep bring some of the topics, and leadership and enablement should help kind of frame a MVP, if you will, of like coaching questions. Some basic ones I really like tell me about last week's highlights and lowlights. Where are you stuck? These are really, what else would you like to discuss? How can I help you this week? These are really easy things that the rep can come prepared for. And now when you sit down for that coaching conversation, one, it didn't take you a ton of time to prep for the manager, really, or for the rep. But two, the rep's bringing the answers to the test. So as you sit down, there's fewer surprises, it's more impactful, and it just allows for the outcome of that coaching conversation to be more meaningful. So I really like the idea of giving the rep some of the onus there and having them add to it. Anthony, have you done anything similar in how you've approached one-on-ones, or any kind of tips and tricks of how you would make that coaching conversation more meaningful?
Yeah, I think really doubling down what you were mentioning, I like to have my reps look at the data themselves. I always believe being data-driven is always going to lead more to answers than, thoughts and feelings. So I'll have them look at the data themselves, come by, talk to me. How did you feel? Did you feel accomplished? What were the action items that, we've talked about previously? Did you feel like you were productive? Did you hit your goals? And if not, what were the reasons? How can we identify and diagnose some of the problems and move forward from that? So really having them, surprisingly, even for me as a rep, looking at the data beforehand. And once you understand that, you answer a lot of the questions yourself. So at that point, you're more discussing with your managers the strategies than really seeking advice from them, because you yourself already know the path that you want to take.
Yeah, one good point you make that I think about is I've been in one-on-ones in the past where either I was presenting metrics or the rep was the takeaway is the rep was finding out their performance on some metrics that they didn't know about. It's like, that shouldn't exist. A rep and a manager should always be aligned on what the key performance indicators are. There's no gray area there. So when you show up for your coaching conversation, again, you're eliminating the surprises. So I love that. Okay, let's keep moving here. And for the group attending, by all means, keep firing off questions, send stuff through. We're going to field several of those here after this next piece. But we're going to talk about how to energize your reps at SKO next year. And I will start in terms of how we are thinking about this in Ambition, certainly how I think about this as a sales leader. Given 2023 had a lot of curveballs, and hey, there's a couple months left, still probably a few more curveballs. The days of, and this is a real true story, of me coming in as Ted Lasso to hype up the sales team, I'll worry that's going to fall on deaf ears in an environment like this. Like the over optimism or the over hoorah or the over why this is going to be the best year ever. Everyone is way more informed and they've lived through, the 2022, 2023 that's had a lot of challenges. And so one of the ways that we are approaching that differently at Ambition is lessons learned and how that's informed the path to 2024 and how we can take the data from 2023 and not just the like, where have we sold or where have we renewed or where have we expanded, but how is that informing the product decisions? How is that informing the go-to-market changes, even our messaging? We're talking with customers right now to not lead them on why they love Ambition, but have them give us their words so we can use their voice in next year. But how do we take those lessons learned from kind of a tumultuous year to plan for next year and continue to obviously grow and create the vision that everyone can rally around? But if I had to create a one-liner, there's probably a little more dose of reality to the message this year versus in previous years. I've totally been guilty of like, be Ted Lasso, stand up, hype the crowd, like high five everybody, hair on fire. And so I think that still works probably for some companies, but the way we're approaching it is with a little more measure, if you will, in a 2024. So Glennis, I know you're involved in helping to plan some of Workdays, and you don't have to give away all the secrets of what's coming in the Workday SKO, but how do you all think about this?
Yeah, I love your comment on a little more of a dose of reality, because I think we start to border on toxic positivity if we don't. It's no secret that 2023 was tough for pretty much everybody. And if you tell people that it's not, then they're like, I don't want to listen to anything else you have to say, because you're not leveling with them, right? So one of the biggest things that we try and do is we really like to find the balance between learning and getting together with people you may not get to see except for that one time a year. So really balancing, like, what are the sessions you're providing versus providing free time. Hopefully I'm not giving away any trade secrets here, but one of the things that I personally love what we do is we create a space where people can have a topic. So for example, for myself, I ran one last year. I talked about avoiding a trial by fire, moving from AE to frontline manager. And I would be able to set up one-on-one conversations for half an hour with people who are interested in that topic. So it's a really cool thing that if you can create that space and find some kind of online portal where people can search through the topics and create those meetings, you can do one-on-ones, you can do small group meetings. It's just a great way to network, but also people to learn about something they're genuinely interested in. That's maybe not a larger session.
Yeah, I like the cross-functional, especially with you and with a sales manager. It also makes me think about just peer-to-peer conversation and peer-to-peer accountability that can happen. I know that, or certainly my stance is that reps don't want to hear the great idea from their boss. They'd rather hear the great idea from their colleague who's in the same motion every day and something that's worked for them, and being able to get them in person. That's just going to happen more often than if you're, we're all used to just being here on Zoom. So sometimes you discount the how engaging it can be to just get people in the same place, get them on the right topic. Sometimes leadership stepping away to let those conversations happen and let them come up with some of the solutions. So I appreciate that, Glennis. All right. So Crunchbase SKO, Anthony, tell us how you think about energizing the team. Definitely one of your playlists. Surely you've got the DJ gear. Tell us how you're thinking about it.
Well, aside from hiring a DJ at SKO to get the energy up, one of the ways that we're really looking at it, which we've all talked about here for building morale, is I really liked what you were talking about, Mark, is as leaders, I think it's really important for us to take a step back and let our teams really connect with the departments they don't get to see. Crunchbase is fully remote, and for anyone that's fully remote, it's very hard to build rapport with people that you only see on Zoom. So we're making sure that at SKO we're connecting with people, both professionally and casually. But one of the unique things we're doing to help be a little bit more hands off and let the reps create the magic and the ideas is one thing that I've always found fun and successful is getting cross-functional teams such as maybe sales, product, and marketing, getting them together and having a Shark Tank. What you do is you have them share the ideas that they think are exciting for SKO, some new processes and projects they can do. They come up with the ideas themselves and they present it to the executives or to the leaders. And from that, you're not only building that rapport and team building, but you're also hearing straight from the team. What are some great ideas that you can implement in 2024? Their feedback is being heard and being expressed in such a unique way. And it's one of the ways that your reps will really have fun, but still feel like, great, whatever I'm saying here is being heard to the right people. And I can look forward to this being, worked with or worked on at some point this year.
So are you like the Mark Cuban in this internal Shark Tank? Or are you more
I like to say I'm kind of
there?
sometimes Mr. Wonderful. You know what it is. Not the easiest. Got to make them work for a little bit, but we have
Well,
fun. It's a great time.
that's such a creative idea, and having worked with a lot of sales development teams too. And I know you're not referring just to sales development teams, but I'm always impressed with the ideas that come out of sales development. It's like in a way they don't have they're not like the tenured, enterprise account executive who's kind of salty about like all things that have to do with work. Like the SDR comes in, they got a brand new idea, they're charged up, and some of the best stuff comes out of that team. So I really like the idea, especially for sales development reps, to see what they come up with. And they are the tip of the sword, right? Like they are the first people talking to your potential customer, and they have just as good of an idea as anyone on what's resonating and what could be improved, especially entering 2024 where pipe gen, there's this like resurgence of, AE should be outbounding again. And now, for years, I feel like account executives have gotten a little spoiled, for lack of a better term, on, hey, you're just going to have SDRs, BDRs teeing you up, meetings all day. I know it's never that easy, but now there's more of an impetus on like, all right, we got to be back in account executive, outbounding. You can learn from SDRs. SDRs have been, doing this now and really are the best people at the company at doing it. And so how can you create some collaboration with the two of them, keeping them both on the same page, the best practices, so much changing in that world. How do you outbound best could be another great topic for the crew at SKO. Okay, now we are going to get into some Q&A from the group. So I wanted to call out, there it is. Amy had a great favorite question in coaching of what do you think went well, regardless of the situation or process, and what would you do differently, creating direct ownership and critical thinking. I love the simplicity of that. That is actually one of my go-tos for call coaching. So after you get off a demo, and oftentimes you see the manager just kind of like go all in. Hey, Anthony, here's something that I think you could do better. And there was this one part, and here's this little tweak, blah, blah, blah. No, stop and say, hey, Anthony, all right, we're going to start with a little bit of your take first. So tell me, what do you think went well? Boom, 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 boom. I agree. What do you think didn't go well? Or what would you do differently next time? Boom, 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 boom. I agree. Or, hey, I disagree. Or here's what I would add to that list. Those are really simple leading questions, Emmy, that I like, that get the person talking, that are broad enough where they can take it in any direction. So thank you for sharing. All right. What is our next question here?
While we're waiting, Mark, I'll just add on to that. I think you just pointed out a great example of what is feedback versus what is coaching. And one of the cool things about letting someone lead with what they think went well or didn't is, instead of having to provide feedback, if you caught something that you really want them to work on, you can say, that's awesome, see if they catch it. If they don't, then you can create it into another question like, hey, what did you think about this situation during this call or this interaction? And then again, you're putting that onus back on them to really critically think about something that you caught, but instead of creating it as feedback, you're helping them come up with their own answer.
So true. It's like a training, a skill assessment live in coaching to see if they're picking up on some of the pieces that you observed. Okay, we have a question coming through from LinkedIn. And Glennis, I'm going to point this at you because it's enablement related. How does enablement help sellers adapt to new plans as strategies pivot throughout the year?
Oh my gosh, the golden question, right? I think really the role of enablement is to figure out the best way for the field to consume any information coming from anywhere. So, strategies especially, I know a lot of my team, we work on, the field consumption. Sometimes the people coming up with strategies are not necessarily the people who are in the field day to day. And so the way that they, bring it to the field, there can be confusion, there can be questions of why it's happening. So really almost being that middleman of saying, okay, how is this relevant? How is the field going to consume this information? Where might there be opportunities to adapt the strategy based off of what we're hearing from the field? And kind of give that outside perspective, because you're not in those day-to-day weeds. So we have the unique ability to take that step back and say, we're looking at this as a whole, and we're seeing some disconnects here. So I think that's one of the biggest ways enablement helps sellers and leadership to adapt to the new plans and strategies, is taking whatever comes down, making it consumable and relevant to the sellers, and then providing that information to those sellers.
Anthony, would you add anything to how enablement helps? Or maybe your experience?
I mean, I would say that's exactly 100% it. And with in our enablement team as well, I mean, just being close to the SDRs and the AEs and following their sales process and what's going on with them allows our sales enablement team to really be in tune and build that rapport and that trust. So no, I think that's exactly what we're looking to do too.
And double down on those frontline managers, right? Enablement initiatives can kind of live and die. Everybody's initiatives live and die with the frontline managers. So being able to enable them is huge. Okay, we got a question here from David. Do you have key indicators for your forecasting before your year starts and while you are working your plan throughout the year? Yes, we definitely have key indicators. And I'll give you some examples of how that has changed. So this year, more than ever at Ambition, the two things have been king in forecasting. One is like an age-old, are you at power? Are you with the decision maker? And, in years like 2021, there were plenty of deals that happened that maybe we hadn't met the actual decision maker, but we were just kind of trusting our champion or, senior champions to get us, across the finish line. In 2023, if you hadn't actually met the decision maker and you didn't confirm that you are their first or one of their top priorities, that wasn't a forecastable deal. Because in our experience, what we saw this year is you pretty much had to be the number one or number two priority of not only the decision maker, but the finance counterpart who is now going to release the funds. Because if you weren't, you were probably going to get pushed. And the finance and more senior leadership had more control than ever. And I think that's going to continue as the pressures on being more efficient became greater and greater. So the days of like the excited, we sell to sales leaders, sales ops, sales enablement. The days of like the really excited sales leader that gets you through, those aren't quite as prevalent anymore. You know, they need finance, they need IT, they need enablement, they need them all brought on board in order to make that decision. So being at Power was certainly a big change this year. But there's a bunch of indicators, is the truth. You know, the pain that you're solving for, is there a compelling event of why they need to change? Are you at Power? There's several we could rattle off here. Goodness, Anthony, would you guys add anything for key indicators for your forecasting?
I would say for us, speaking specifically with pipeline, I think again, big thing that I'm always about is marketing and sales alignment. And what we're looking at is channel by channel, who's performing, who's converting at what rate, and looking at each of those funnel by funnel. Leads can turn into sales, but from those sales, how many of them are actually turning to opportunities? And from those, what deal or value are they closing at? What's the amount that we're looking for? And from that, we're looking at that, optimizing it and building in the strategy for next year so we can start revisiting the channels that we are seeing perform stronger that haven't been performing pre-2023, and using that as our main drivers. And also looking at other campaigns we can either revisit and see how they're going, and also strategize on some new ones. So those are some of the key indicators that we're looking at for forecasting, specifically when it comes to inbound and pipeline.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Anthony. I love the sales and marketing alignment. I think that's huge. Obviously, that's where a lot of the leads come from, right? And then how we act on them. One of the big things that we do as well is we look back at the last, 3 to 4 rolling quarters and look at deal postmortems. So where were we losing? Why were those reasons? Are there overarching themes? And are those gaps that we need to be filling, specifically from an enablement standpoint, as we look to being able to forecast into the new year? Because those are very, very easy to see and trend wise. And they're usually quite simple to fix as well. So that's a great one of, if you know what you were looking at in the past, you can usually use that to forecast for the future.
100%. Okay, we got another one coming from LinkedIn. How are you optimizing, structuring comp plans for 2024? Wow, if anybody's teams are on this watching, answer appropriately. I can start. I mean, anytime you're thinking about a comp plan, obviously you're trying to drive what's most valuable for the business. And so one of the, for years, we have been very focused on net new logo. And a lot of the comp plan was around net new logos coming on board. And a lot still very much is about net new logos. One of the things that, you think about in an environment like this, where tech consolidation is king, it's really hard to get new stuff in, is how do you position expansions, and who owns expansions, and how do you comp on the expansion? And if that's the easiest path, the quickest path to revenue, like we started talking about earlier, then how do you align the team to best optimize that path? And so there can be some adjustments, and comp plans do drive behavior, and being able to align the comp plan to the behavior that you want to encourage, in this example, perhaps that is current customer growth. Then there are things that you can do and levers that you can pull to help people get there. And my only other comp plan guidance is, you always show last year's versus this year's, because that's the first thing anyone's going to do is, can I make more money, or would I have made more money? And if the answer is no, you need to be upfront about that and tell them how they make more money or similar money this year based on, the adjustment to a comp plan. So there's so much that goes into designing an effective comp plan, obviously very complex. But, my take is, be as simple as possible. It shouldn't take a rep 2 minutes to explain their comp plan to somebody. And they also shouldn't really need that calculator all the time to figure out what they're getting paid, because it should be pretty basic of how they determine, I'm making X percentage or X fee or whatever that looks like based on sale. Team, what would you add to the comp plan question?
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%, making it very simple and making it so that they don't have to spend so much time trying to figure out what they're going to be making this month. Kind of talking about what I was talking about earlier, I think one of the bigger changes that we made amongst our team is just the KPIs that we're looking at, and again, it's more so on efficiency and the outcomes that lead to the results that we're looking for. I think another thing too is because most teams are dealing with either smaller teams or less budget. One of the things we're thinking about is how can we have some of our sales reps maybe do a little bit of both when it comes to working together. For example, since we do get a lot of self-serve products or smaller deals in, we're allowing some of our SDRs to help close those smaller deals. So what that allows them to do is get a little bit of experience of closing, but also add a little bit of revenue to the company. So I think using unique ways to help maximize some of your reps will help to look into for some of your comp plans.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you touched on it, Anthony. And Mark, to your point, the only thing I would add is, yeah, make sure it's beneficial for everyone, especially when you have cross-functional collaboration, because that's one of the first things I think that can start to diminish trust within a team is when people feel like their collaboration is going to take away from their compensation. That can be really detrimental. So making sure that they understand why it is set out the way it is. And then I can't stress simplicity enough. I used to work with a sales leader who said, if you couldn't put it on a Post-it note, it's too complicated.
I love that. I should steal that and put ours in a Post-it note. Okay, well, goodness, Anthony, thank you all so much for joining us and sharing some of your insights with our group. For those that joined on LinkedIn and here on Zoom, we are so grateful you chose to spend some time with Workday, with Crunchbase, with Ambition. We hope you took something from this that's actionable that you can use with your team. So we have a industry survey that we are sending out that will give you a chance to win $100. So take it if you are inclined. But foremost, just really grateful that everybody chose to spend time with us this afternoon or this morning if you're Pacific. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their week and a good Thanksgiving holiday next week. We'll talk to you soon.